Welcome back. We're going to be kicking off today's video with the white set review. We're going to go over every single card in the Forgotten Realms set that's coming out in just 2 days on Arena. Actually, by the time you're seeing this video, I guess it's probably only 1 day. But we're going to go over each card 1 through 5 with a rating. These will also be on Cool Stuff Inc. in article form. We have Yanks as a guest star again, who is here to make sure I don't misread things and just give another perspective, and also to save my voice, because if we talk about a card and split it, then I don't lose my voice as easily. Say hi, Yanks.
Hello, everybody.
So real quick, part of the problem with this set is that they basically gave us no notice for the new set. So the last card was spoiled today, and it comes out in like a day and a half. So these set reviews are very blind. We're kind of just reading these for the first time and giving you guys our initial reaction. These will be in article form. They'll be in a Google Sheet you guys will have access to in a couple of days. And then halfway through the set, we'll reevaluate some of those scores and see how they've changed based on initial reaction. So let's go ahead and jump right in to +2 Mace. This is a 2-mana equipment. It gives +2/+2 with a 3 equip cost. What are your initial thoughts, Yanks?
I'm never particularly high on equipment, but +2/+2 is a sizable bonus. Reasonable cost, reasonable equip cost. I think this is playable, but not super exciting unless we start seeing, equipment synergies.
So I agree. +2/+2 is good. The 2 mana is fine. My biggest concern with the card is a 3 equip cost is kind of high for not giving a text ability or key term ability. If this was like +2/+2 in vigilance, +2/+2 in flying, I'm far more likely to be playing this in my deck. I mean, clearly, extra is always good, but 3 mana I think is just really high for a base stat only.
Yeah, I agree, although I will say equipment in recent sets have surprised me with how much more playable it has been than I've been expecting, so.
That's true, but they usually gave like a treasure token or gave flying or gave redraw. Yeah. Those have been the ones that I've really enjoyed. This one, we'll see.
I think where you'll see this shine is if you get some sort of flyers deck where you can just, grow your stuff and race even better.
Yeah, definitely. But even then, we've seen enchantments that were like +2/+0 and a little, 2 to equip or something. That might be better. So personally, sure. I have this at like a 1/5 or a 2.
Yeah, I've got it right around a 2.
Great. All right, we have the Pegasus. It's a 4-mana 3/2 flyer that when it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. So you could just lethal somebody with this if you're running like more of a Selesnya big creatures deck, but also it just gets in a little chip damage, which is nice.
Yeah, I generally prefer my 4-mana flyers to be 3/2 instead of 2/3, but the ability on this enter the battlefield gets some extra chip damage in is nice.
Yeah, and I really do think that there is going to be a non-zero amount of times that its ETB effect will kill somebody.
Yep. The card didn't advance on the screen.
Worst streamer ever. Sorry, guys. Now you can see it. I was just leaving you in suspense.
It's definitely something I think probably does really well in something like green-white, where you've got some big ground beaters that you can just get in for a huge chunk of damage with on a stalled board.
Agreed. What do we think in score-wise?
I probably have this, without seeing the rest of the set, I've got this probably around a 2/5. I'm happy with it, but I'm not going to be looking to run like 5 or 6 of them or anything crazy.
I think it is a little heavy mana costed for what you're getting. It's going to depend on how many 2/2s are in the format or token generators. Like how wide this format is going to go makes me a lot more inclined to want to run a card like this. But again, it's very not what I would expect to see for a flyer. It's a little ass backwards. It doesn't have lifelink like most Pegasus do, which I would much rather have than the one-time Mighty Leap, basically. But I definitely think it's fine. I think it's a 2 to a 2/5.
Yeah, and the one-time leap is a little weird flavor, right? The Pegasus lets you fly on it once and then never again. Like that's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it decided you were too fat.
That's because it made me bigger. It's its fault.
That's true. It added a few pounds.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, I did change it this time. We have the Blink Dog, 3-mana 1/1 with double strike. And you can pay 4 mana to phase it out. which is a teleport, one of those special abilities we talked about in the introduction video.
Yeah, teleport, since it's the first time we're seeing it in a card by card, that's just there's a ton of these italicized words. They're just for flavor. You don't need to memorize what all of them do. It will tell you what they do every time.
Yep.
On here. Back to this card. Blink Dog, 3-mana, 1/1 double strike on its own. Not exciting. But we've already seen the +2 mace. Stick that on there, you get a 3/3 double strike. Maybe there's a decent amount of auras that are worth playing. This could be an interesting card, but it needs some support.
Yeah, the mace is one of the things, but auras I'd be a little bit less inclined to, because then you're basically mitigating its special text, which is the blink possibility.
Well, that's the one tricky thing about it being called Blink Dog, is that phasing out does not get rid of the aura. The aura goes with it and comes back with it.
I actually didn't read that was phase out.
Yeah. It's weird because it's called Blink Dog.
Yep. I just read it as a blink. That's exactly what happened. No, you're 100% true. Okay, so we're going to have to take a look further in the set and see what kind of auras there are. That does make me like this a bit more. It does mean also that if they put any of the, Charmed Sleep on it, right?
Yes, that's the downside. Those things stay on it.
Can't do anything tricky. I think it's a little expensive for a 1/1 double strike, but the ability is kind of cool. So if you have some synergy to go with it, but if you don't, I'm not in love. Thoughts?
Kind of the same. Phasing out has some advantages over blinking and some disadvantages, but I think you're probably going to play this card, but you're only going to want to take it earlier, be really happy with it if you've already got some stuff to buff it.
I feel like it's similar to the 1/2 first strike from the double strike from the last set, where I ran it if I had a bunch of the +3/+1 trample spells, but not it got cut most of the time other than that.
Sure.
So I'm thinking a 2 in the average deck.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
All right, tiny text. I'm gonna leave it to you.
Yep. We got our first mythic, the Book of Exalted Deeds, white for a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, you get a 3/3 white angel token with flying. And then you can pay white, tap and exile this. You put an enlightened counter on target angel, and it gains the ability, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Activated only as a sorcery. So it basically turns one of your angels into a platinum angel. For people that know that card from some weird modern shenanigan combo decks.
Yep. They have it on Arena now. I saw it in the queue.
Oh yeah, that's true. It is in Arena.
So this is going to be very synergy dependent. I did see another card that said when you gain a life, you gain an extra life kind of thing. So there is some life gain mechanics, but again, this is kind of a blind set review. So I think the synergy on this is going to be have a wide range dependent upon the rest of the set. I'm so sorry, guys. Let me mute that. Go ahead, Yank.
Yeah, it's a very awkward casting cost, white. So you can't really splash this card. It's a 3/3 angel, which is a little weird. Most angels you see are 4/4, but you occasionally see some 3/3s. I'm not a huge fan of this card. It doesn't really do anything on its own. Now, you could find the deck where this card is great. If you get a lot of life gain synergies, we'll see there are some in white. Black-white a lot of times can be life.
I'm really sorry about that, guys. My roommates have some guests over, which apparently is making my dog go a little apeshit. Okay, so Yanks, what did you, rating on this card?
I didn't get to a rating yet. I was going to say I think this is probably a split rating. I think it's probably a 1 on its own, but if you start getting enough life gain synergies, this could be one of the best cards in your deck.
Definitely. I'm not a huge fan of the Platinum Angel bonus effect. No. I feel like if you have the life gain to make this worth it, you just always want to be keeping that life gain going and continuing to spawn angels. The second you give it that special ability, you're going to die. They're just going to top deck a removal spell, which is so much more likely.
Yeah, and because it's just a counter on a token, well, I guess you could put it on regular angel, but because just a counter on even bounce gets rid of that ability forever. Yes.
I will say it'd be kind of cool, let's say you have one angel and they've got 30 creatures, you could put it on there, and then, you're gonna die if you don't, so they might not have removal, so it does give you, a little bit of a bonus, but I wouldn't put it on there too hasty.
Yeah, that's gonna come up very infrequently.
All right, guys, moving on. We have the Celestial Unicorn. It is a 3/2 for 3 base stats, which is curve filler minus. And whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on the Celestial Unicorn. So this is still another one of those kind of split ratings, but at its worst, it's kind of a 2. Sometimes you're just desperate for 3 drops to get a nice curve and not get ran over. So it's playable, but it gets much better as as your synergy goes up.
Yeah, basic curve filler stats with an ability that even if you trigger it once, you're pretty happy with that card. So it doesn't require a lot to build around it to make it good, and it's playable on its own.
Yeah, someone said removing the counter on that last angel thing doesn't do anything because it gains the ability. If you're removing the counter, usually that's going to be a bounce effect, and then you don't get to write it on the card, right? So it's going to lose the ability.
Yeah.
That was the reference we were making. So for the Celestial... Oh, go ahead.
I say you can't just replay it and it has the ability again, basically.
Yeah. So I'm putting this at a 2/5. It's got some upside, a little bit better than filler.
Yep. Sounds good. We should 2 cards in a row with life gain synergy, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, especially when we move into black at some point for that typical black-white life gain.
Possibly. Yeah, unless it's in green or something weird like it was for Witherbloom, right?
Yeah, true.
All right, Cleric class card, guys. So we talked about this in the introduction video, so if you guys need to know how class card works, make sure you guys check out that video. 1 mana, and this is the one I was talking about. Whenever you gain a life, you gain that much +1. So now your 2 life gain triggers will trigger your mythic, so that's kind of neat. For 4 mana, you level it up. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. So this turns all of your creatures into a Johnny Pridemate. Not at the same time, obviously, only one at a time, but all of your creatures for the rest of the game have that ability if you only have 1 creature out, right?
Yep.
And then the last level is the one where you can pay 5 mana, get a card back, gain a life, trigger all your other abilities, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll have to see how these class cards come out. Obviously, a brand new card type or subtype will always need some testing, but on its face, I'm not a huge fan of this card, but we are starting to see life gain trigger after trigger after trigger, so that might just be good enough that that first ability is actually worth playing, because it starts getting really expensive to level this up.
Yeah, the last one is valuable all on its own. A lot of times you will play a 5 mana recur creature onto the battlefield thing. But this, don't forget, guys, you have to pay 5 mana first to get there. So this is a 10 mana recur creature over 2 to 3 turns. So, I'm not running it just for that. So if you don't have the life gain synergy, I'm not really considering this. But, sometimes life gain synergies, and it's looking like that might be the case here, is very, very common. So being able to get a few random triggers is just going to happen. So this is probably going to be worth it.
Yeah, odds are, and we'll have to see, but odds are this is probably a great card in 1 color pair, and
yes,
probably not very playable in the other white color pairs.
100% agree. I have this at a 1/5, a split rating for a 3.
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. Moving on. The Cloister Gargoyle, guys. It's an artifact creature. It's an 0/4. When it enters the battlefield, you get to venture. And when you've completed a dungeon, so as you draw it later, it gets +3/+0 and flying. I actually really like this card. It's going to stonewall all the aggressive decks. And then later in the game, it becomes a 3/4 flying beater for 3, which is good. And if you draw it late, I love cards that have some purpose early, like you cast this on 3, but then get better later, whether they're on the board or they get drawn. Those are my favorite kind of cards.
Yeah. But one weird thing I find in this card, and again, we're 7 cards in, so we'll have to see, is that white is usually an aggressive color, and this is very much not an aggressive card because it's going to take a while to get that ability.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the problems with aggressive decks is you end up with cards that have no impact in the late game, and this is one that does. So maybe it's still good in that deck. Venturing into the dungeon is a good thing to start.
As I was perusing the set, it doesn't look like completing the smaller dungeon will be very hard.
Okay, yeah, I mean if that is the case and you can do it fairly quickly, then you're getting a 3/4, and as long as you're not too upset about having to 3 mana 0/4, you're okay with that.
Yeah, I 100% agree that if you don't want to play this if you cannot complete the dungeon, but with any amount of dungeon synergy, I'm really on board for this. So I think it's a 2/5 with some upside if you have a lot of dungeon synergies.
Yeah, I'd probably have it slightly lower, like a 2 with some upside, but we're in the same ballpark.
Great. Also, guys, if you don't have a lot of adventure synergies, consider picking this up for the sideboard, and it's an 0/4 that does some stuff. Usually entering the dungeon is going to get you a scry or something, so being able to block 2 to 3 attacks against an aggressive deck is going to be pretty helpful.
Agreed.
All right, Dancing Sword. This is a 2 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Whenever a equipped creature dies, you may have Dancing Sword become a 2/1 construct artifact creature with flying and ward. If you do, it isn't an equipment. And only 1 equip cost. Huh. That's kind of cool.
I like this card way better than the +2 mace.
Well, it's also a rare.
Also rare, yeah. So they should, but +2/+1 as opposed to +2/+2. Only equip 1, which is the biggest thing on there. You dodge the downside of them killing your only creature.
Yep, that's one of the bigger downsides of equipments for sure, is that if you do run out of creatures or something, then you're kind of shit out of luck. But as long as you have 1 when this is out, then not drawing a second one is not the worst. And then this becomes a moderately decent beater. They have to possibly trade down or cast bigger removal, and then for essentially 3 mana, 2 to cast, 1 to equip, you get a 2/1 flyer, which we've been paying that rate for the entire Strixhaven set.
Yeah, this is also a good card as an equipment in a deck that cares about equipment or auras, because the creature you get is something you'll want to put those equipment and auras on as an evasive threat.
Definitely. I like keeping it as an equipment. I think it's got a great equip rate and great stat line. So, I'm probably not turning it into a creature pretty regularly, but if I'm light on creatures, then I will.
Yeah.
What do you think in score-wise?
I've got this card at probably a 3. Could be a little higher, but I'm always just a little low on equipment. But this is a very good one.
See, I think I'm a little... that's weird, because you were higher on the mace than I was, and I'm higher on this. Yeah, I have this at like a 3/5. In a creature-heavy deck, I have it closer to a 4.
Yeah, that could certainly be the case. I will be happy to play the card at any time.
All right, Dawnbringer Cleric, guys. This is one of the most flavorful cards. It has a bunch of D&D terms. This is just kind of a filler creature, 2 mana, 1/3. And then when it enters the battlefield, you can choose 1. You can cure wounds, gain 2 life. You can dispel magic, destroy target enchantment, or you can exile target card from a graveyard. So none of the abilities are super home run hitting kind of abilities, but the flexibility seems great.
Yeah, every one of those abilities is pretty subpar on its own, but getting to choose between 3 of them with at least 1 that always gets you something in the life is really nice on a body that's not exciting but not undersized for its mana cost either.
No, I typically like my 1/3s to like redraw or do something a little bit more fun, but 1/3s for 2 is something you're going to be playing reasonably often just to fill your curve.
Yeah, and this is just like you said about the gargoyle. This is a fantastic card to have in your sideboard.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Against aggressive decks. Anybody remembers Irrational Cleric from Fate Reforged? That card saw regular sideboard constructed play, and all that did was 2 mana, 1/3, and the only choice was gain 3 life, and you couldn't have any of the other options. So, the flexibility and the fact that it's going to be good against aggro decks makes this a good card to have access to.
What do you think in score-wise?
All being said, I think it's still not a super high score. I've got this right around a 2, but one I'm happy to pick up because I'll be thrilled to have access to it, even if it's not high impact.
I agree with that, yeah. I'm definitely happier to pick this 2 up because it's, again, not high impact, but happier than any other 2 that we typically will see. This is another equipment, guys. This is the most single-colored equipments I've seen in a very long time. 2 mana, equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you get to venture. Holy shit. See, that's something I'm willing to equip 3 for. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. These cards are hard without knowing just how impactful the dungeons are going to be, but this seems really good.
I agree. Put this on like even just a little 1/1 flyer. I like it a lot. And there is a 1 mana 1/1 flyer in the set. We haven't looked at any of the other colors yet, but I'm closer to having this at like a 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think for my own consistency, I'd have to put it at 2.5 because I do think it's worse than Dancing Sword.
Oh, yep, that makes sense.
Which I had as a 3, but it is a good card.
So we're right on the same range because I had that at a 3/5.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's when it attacks, not like deals combat damage to a player or something. Because it'll you can, if you really need that venture, you can make a bad attack if you absolutely have to. It gives you the flexibility there.
All right, so I'm gonna put it down as a 3 for me. All right, Devoted Paladin. This is one of those not important keywords, which is a Beacon of Hope. It's a 5 mana 4/4, and when it enters the battlefield, you get +1/+1 and gain Vigilance. All creatures that you control get +1/+1 and Vigilance. We've seen this kind of effect before, +1/+1, and there was a 3/3 flyer for 4 that did that, but you get the Vigilance instead of basically the evasive body. But honestly, 4/4s for 5 have been pretty decent recently.
Yep. Just make sure you slide the card over.
It's over.
Good. 5 mana 4/4. Yeah, filler card. Good in tokens. We haven't seen anything with that yet, but we haven't seen any token makers yet, but that's always a potential theme in any set.
Yeah, and then, white is usually the slightly wider, go wide creature type decks. So I have this at 2/5.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. You're not going to want a ton of them, but it's probably a reasonable top end.
Awesome. I'm going to let you take the next one.
All right. Divine Smite. 1 and a white instant. Target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls phases out. If that permanent's black, exile it instead.
Okay.
This is really just a sideboard type card against black. You can find uses for it, but you're going to end up down a card most of the time. Maybe you can do it in response to like a combat trick.
Yeah.
You can't protect your own stuff from removal because it's an opponent controls.
Yep. Combat tricks is really the only reason we main board this. If there is a lot of combat tricks in the format, there are definitely some sets where I will just main deck a couple of cards for that purpose, but most sets that's not usually going to be the case. I think this is a sideboard card.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm going to give it a 1/5. All right, moving on, guys. Dragon's Disciple. Dragon's Disciple enters the battlefield. You may reveal a dragon card from your hand. If you control a dragon, Dragon's Disciple enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Dragons you control have Ward 1. Okay, so if you have a high number of dragons, this is a 2/3 for 2. I'm sorry, 2/4.
2/4, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to do a quick scan to see if we have more dragons than usual, which I would assume we are, given the theme of the set. Like we'll probably see them in all 5 colors.
There's definitely a dragon of every single color,
and at lower rarities as well. A lot of times they're only in rare or mythic, but I know I've already seen some uncommons just scrolling through. I think this card's fine. It's a 1/3 for 2 on its own, which is just fine. But you'll want something to go with it. You need a few dragons to really want to be playing this card, probably on the order of 3 or 4.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, the average deck is probably not going to want this. Even if we have a lot of dragons, usually dragons are still rare. So I just don't see that necessarily being the case, especially because they're all like in, one of each color. So you're still not likely to find a ton. It's going to depend on how many uncommon dragons we have, I think. And I agree, 3 to 4 is the minimum.
Yeah, there is a cycle of uncommons: white dragon, blue dragon, black dragon, red dragon, green dragon, literally called that.
Yeah. Okay, I thought those were actually rares. Okay, I like that a little bit better. Those are the ones I was talking about.
Yeah. And there's a mythic cycle, and it looks like every color has at least one rare one as well. The one thing I will note is that the ward ability, which doesn't seem that great, usually dragons are something you really do want to protect. So that is something helpful.
I was actually going to say the same thing. I was going to say, you know, we write this card off, even if you don't value the +1/+1 counter. Try, you know, if you have a lot of dragons, don't write off the ward ability as nothing, because again, that's something that it almost makes them have to remove this first if they want to have any good interaction with your dragons.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about making every removal spell your opponent has cost one more. Like, that just forces them to play off curve. You know, it's just really awkward.
I have this at a 2. It's got some upside if you have a lot of dragons, but I don't see that being the case.
Agreed. It's a 2 with some upside.
All right, Champion. It is a 3/1 for 2 mana. We see those in almost every set. As long as the champion is equipped, it gets +0/+2. So it becomes a 3/3, which is fine.
Yeah. 2 mana 3/1 is something aggressive decks will play. And aggressive decks will tend to have more equipment than others. Especially in this set, it seems like.
We've seen a lot of equipment already just in one color, so hypothetically, if each set has an equal distribution of equipments, which might not be the case, there might be like an equipment color pair maybe, but that's still a lot, and that doesn't include any potentially like artifact ones or anything. So I like this card well enough. I mean, I think it's like a 2/5 in the deck that wants it, but also a lot of times you just kind of need to have 2 drops to fill, and I think this one is fine.
Yeah, fill or 2-drop with definite upside in the right deck.
Yeah, if you don't have the equipments, then it's just a 2 filler.
Yep.
All right, moving right along. Flumph.
I'm not gonna ever play this card without laughing at the name.
It's Flumph, right?
Flumph. Yeah, Flumph. I cast Flumph.
It is a 0/4 for 2 mana, defender flyer. When damage is dealt to it, target opponent, you and target opponent each draw a card. So it blocks a ton and lets you draw a bunch. I'm kind of torn because like 0/4s, you usually want those against more aggressive decks, but also you kind of want aggressive decks to run out of gas. But if you're letting them draw each time you absorb 2 damage, they're going to just go wider and wider and wider. So you need to have kind of another backup plan. I'm not a huge fan of this, except for the fact that it's called a jellyfish. I love jellyfish, but
yeah, I don't like this card at all. I mean, this card's clearly, the way it's even worded, is clearly designed for multiplayer, for EDH.
Yeah,
because you can pick one opponent and then you're not at a full disadvantage. You know, they've been trying to work this sort of white card draw into sets recently where it works both ways. It hasn't been good yet, and I don't think it will be here. Not a terrible card to have in your sideboard if you just need something to block flyers, but that's about it.
All right. So I'm giving it a 1. The next card, guys, is a Gloomstalker. It's a 3 mana 2/3. As long as you have completed a dungeon, it gets double strike. This card I actually like a fair amount. This 2/3 for 3 is something we see often, which is just filler. But again, it does get better later in the game, assuming you can complete a dungeon. So it's got a decent upside to it in that if you draw it early, helps stabilize, and then if you draw it later, 2/3 double first strikers are not awful. So
yeah, and another card that's going to play well with equipment. Anything with double strike, obviously you're getting double your value out of your equip bonuses. So nice to have a 3-drop that's good, decent late in the game as well as early.
Yep. I think I said something similar to that. I have this at a 2/5.
Yeah, sounds about right.
All right. Oh man, tiny text. Take it away.
Yep. Grandmaster of Flowers. 2 white for a legendary planeswalker Bahamut with loyalty 3. As long as Grandmaster of Flowers has 7 or more loyalty counters on him, he's a 7/7 dragon god with flying and indestructible. Its ability is +1. Target creature without first strike, double strike, or vigilance can't attack or block until your next turn. And +1, search your library and/or graveyard for a card named Monk of the Open Hand, which we'll see shortly. Reveal it and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle.
Okay, it's interesting that both are plus abilities, so he never goes down except for when he's hit. Also, I think this is the first time we've ever seen a static ability that turns the Planeswalker into a creature permanently, and then he can still use his other abilities. Kind of crazy.
I think that's correct, yeah. Yeah, the abilities are kind of terrible. Monk of the Open Hand is not an impactful card at all, as we'll see in a little bit. It's a 1-mana 1/1 with some upside. The first ability, can make some stuff not attack or block, which is fine in an aggressive deck. Or I guess even if you're trying to protect yourself, but
yeah, or protect itself.
Protect itself, yeah, but only certain things.
Yep.
It's a bit of a weird card. I think you're mostly just trying to get this to 7 and attack with it more than anything else.
Yeah, so it's going to depend how stally your deck is. If you have like the Cloister Gargoyle, right, like 0/4s and things like that. If your deck is kind of dirtily and not super, if your deck isn't able to win on its own, then I guess this is a fine alternate win condition. But I'm not super on board with this. It takes forever before it actually makes any real impact.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of Planeswalkers, they come down, the game turns into a mini game about getting rid of the Planeswalker because it keeps accruing value. But this really doesn't, unless you just need to keep it under 7.
I agree with that. I mean, it will become a huge beater, but you have to be at board even or ahead for long enough for it to get to 7. And if that's the case, you're probably going to win anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty low impact. I'm going to give it a 3 because I'm probably playing it if I'm in white, but I mean, I'm not like, woo, not screaming bingo or anything.
Agreed. Certainly going to play it, but you're not going to be thrilled with it.
Awesome. So we have a 3-mana 3/2, Flash and Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, any number of other creatures you control phase out. So this is good like anti-removal, it's good anti-combat trick, it's good as like a surprise blocker. It's very flexible and has a fair amount of value, I think, and its base stats are fine for the mana cost.
Yeah, I generally wish my surprise blockers had a little more toughness, but that's fine.
I mean, surprise blockers are usually a trade. Like, you're usually trading up against the thing that they value, that they think they can sneak in but can't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the card's very good. The keyword combination, everything seems a little weird, but it's fine. Like, it's still a very good card. Not a ton of synergy that really exists on targeting your own creatures to phase them out, other than protecting them from removal.
Yes, it's not going to like get rid of like Charmed Sleep or anything, so it's literally just target in like that turn targeted removal.
Yeah, it doesn't re-trigger abilities like ETB effects.
Now, I would be pretty happy to like bait out removal spells and things like that, which is always combat tricks. So I'm pretty happy to be blocking in such a way that like I know they're gonna have a trick, try to bait them into it, and then if you basically get a 1-for-0, right? If you hit a combat trick with this, if they think that they can like get your creature.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
Yeah, I think it's
it's better than the Planeswalker.
Yeah, agreed. I think I've got it at a 3/5, right above that.
Yeah, I might be a little higher on it, not because it's like super impactful, but just because I think I'm always going to find a good spot for it. It has, it feels like it has some good upside, but yeah, I think 3/5 is correct. Half Elf Monk. So we have a Vigilance 1/4 for 4 mana, and you can pay 2 and tap target creature.
Yeah, tappers are generally good and limited. 2 mana is a little pricey, but it does have Vigilance, so you can attack and still use it. Nice.
I don't hate the 2 mana tap ability. I think 4 mana is a little bit stiff, but I mean, you are getting a lot in the package. Like, it can still attack, which, you know, may or may not be relevant at a 1/4, but I feel like they tacked on a bunch of things that I'm not like super excited for my tapper to have, and then just made it cost an exorbitant amount.
Yeah, I would rather just be a 3 mana 1/4 with no Vigilance.
Or a,
for example.
Or a 3 mana 1/2 with, you know what I mean? Like, like something, right? The 1 damage vigilance is either going to do something or not. If that's probably because they don't have anything to block it. So it can be like a 1/1 or a 1/2 and just not cost quite so much. Or you, like you said, not have vigilance and be fine.
Yeah. I do like that the art is just, it's like scolding the thing that's attacking her.
It looks like it got hit in the face. Is that like the palm thrust? That's a card, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. I was thinking it looks like, I know that's a knife, but it looks like when you hit your dog with like a newspaper. No.
Hammy does not like this analysis.
I was expecting to hear Hammy in the background when I said that, but.
All right. I mean, I think this card is fine. I'm not thrilled about it. I'm probably putting it at like a 2 or a 2/5.
Yeah, I think it's probably right at a 2.
I'm not excited about the 4 mana cost.
Yeah.
All right, we have a 4 mana 4/3 flying vigilance. I'm in. Doesn't matter. Playing it. The rest of the text can say, like, you know, the little piggy went to the market or whatever and be fine. When it dies, create a Frost Tongue, a legendary white equipped artifact with equipped creature gets +2/+0. When equipped creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. Huh. That's a pretty good equipment.
Yeah.
So if they kill this game-ending evasive threat, they then have to deal with a pretty boss equipment.
Yeah, with a cheap equip cost, only 2 mana.
Can we just give this a 5?
This card's great. Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
It's a guaranteed 2-for-1.
I like that.
I guess unless they exile it.
The best cards with the most text are super easy to rate. Moving on. I'm gonna let you take this one.
Yeah. Ingenious Smith, 1 and a white for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal an artifact card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest in the bottom in a random order. Whenever 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on this card, and it only triggers once per turn. So 2 mana 1/1 with a chance to replace itself with most likely an equipment from what we're seeing, or there are some other artifacts, but and then playing that card will make it a 2/2. This card's okay.
Whenever 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield, so there is like a little bit of an artifact sub-theme. Now, I did briefly take a look at the artifacts, and there are some removal ones, but also there is, like we saw in this one, including this dragon we just did, turns into an artifact, plus we saw 3 other equipments. Yeah, it feels like there is a lot of artifacts so far, and we're only halfway through the white.
Yeah, I think the card's fine. I don't know what the exact number of artifacts you're going to need to have in your deck before I want to play this is to make sure you're going to hit. I haven't thought of the math. It's probably like on the order of 7 or 8, or 6 or 7 maybe.
Yeah, or you need to have some other like synergies with it. But I agree, it's probably not something the average deck is going to be interested in playing.
I think this card's like a without enough artifacts, this card's unplayable.
Oh yeah,
it's just a 2 mana 1/1.
So here's the thing, guys. I think it's a 1 in most decks, and I don't think it's quite good enough in an artifact deck in limited to be worth a split rating. It's kind of like the rat decks and stuff. Like, yeah, you could draft them. They're good if you get like all of the pieces, but I mean that's so rare.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you will know when you want this card. It won't be hard. You'll have a bunch of artifacts, and you'll see this and go, "Hey, I can draw a free card with this 80% of the time." But you know, it's not going to be hard to know when you want to draft this card. But the rest of the time, when it's not obvious, stay away from it.
Yeah, the average deck is not going to want this. Real quick, guys, I wanted to go back to I don't know why this just popped into my head. The Dawnbringer Cleric that we talked about earlier. You know, we just kind of gave it a base. I wanted to point out, I was thinking in my head, I don't know how many, you know, we're doing this blind, so we don't know how many enchantments are in the deck, or I'm sorry, in the format, but all of those pesky class cards that stick around as a permanent enchantment buff will be removed by this. So this actually is probably a lot more main boardable than I was thinking originally, and I'm actually going to bump it up 0.5.
Yeah, being able to get rid of class cards is nice because the abilities, at least some of them, are continuous.
All right, we have the Keen-Eared Sentry. It's a 2/1 which has you have hexproof, and your opponent can't venture into dungeons more than once per turn. None of the abilities are home runs, but they're all going to be annoying and relevant pretty often.
Annoying is the exact word I was thinking of for that. It's a 2-mana 2/1 that's going to like randomly piss off your opponent.
Right? I definitely think it's worth playing if you have it, but I'm probably not picking it up super highly.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there are not that many times that you get targeted as an opponent, or as a player in limited outside of like discard spells.
You could also maybe like put it in your board and then board it in against the particular decks that run all of the venture, right? That's going to be a theme, sort of like cycling, a little bit more broad in that some decks will have it to some extent, but then some decks will just go kind of crazy with it. So you definitely want to have these and board them in for that.
I like the suggestion in chat. You know, you hear the term hate bear all the time. The suggestion that this is a mild dislike bear.
Who said that?
What would Reggie Noble do?
I'm stealing that and making a note. It's going in the article. I'm going to claim it as my own. Thanks, son. All right, we have the Containment 3-mana target non-land permanent. Enchant permanent is a treasure.
I think we skipped over one.
Oh.
We've got our doggo.
Oops, that doggo is not on the Wizards website because Wizards hates us. So the list I'm looking at is not the list that I had to go onto Mythic Spoiler to get. Okay, I can't read it. It's too small. You go for it.
Yeah, Loyal Warhound. It's 1 and a white for a 3/1 dog with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, search for your library for a basic plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Mm-hmm. I've seen this ability before on, I'm going to forget, it's like Knight of the something. It was white from a core set, I believe, a few years ago. You know, it's nice when you're on the draw. You just get a free land out of your deck, assuming they've hit all their land drops.
Yeah, it is. Also, if you miss a land drop or whatever, even if you're on the play, you know, you could play a different 2-drop or cast it first and then play your land kind of thing is possible. So you can make this happen. Yep. Gives you a little ramp. I'm guessing this is going to be like pretty premium in like a Selesnya build. We don't know what the signpost pairings are yet, but you know, those decks typically want to ramp a fair amount and get you some big beasties on board. But either way, it's still a 3/1 vigilance for 2. I'm pretty much on board to play this, and if you ramp or fix or anything, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, even in an aggressive deck, you know, you're kind of, if you're on the draw, you can kind of steal some of that tempo back by being able to skip from 2 to 4.
Yeah, and then play 2 small people. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely pretty good. I'm happy to put this in my deck 3.
Yeah. And yes, it was Knight of the White Orchid. Thank you, chat.
Man.
That I was thinking of.
Chat being so helpful? Did you guys hit your head? Giving me sweet one-liners for the article? No. All right, so now we are at the enchantment. Yes, we gave the doggo a 3. Enchant non-land permanent. Permanent is a treasure artifact with sacrifice, get a mana. Okay. So, go ahead.
It's an interesting card. I mean, it's just a different version of pacifism type effect or arrest, except it can hit anything.
Yes.
Obviously, except lands, which is always an upside, especially with all the equipment we're seeing. That may be something worth getting rid of.
It has a little bit of a plus and a little bit of a minus. We typically do see like 3-mana lockdown spells, but this allows you to hit a permanent rather than just a creature, but then it also gives them a little bonus in that they can ramp or fix. But late in the game, when you're putting these things on scarier targets, you're usually, okay with removing whatever it is at a slight negative.
Yeah, it's got the same negative that all of these cards always have as well, that they can be bounced or disenchanted or whatever, and they get the creature back. But
it's maybe a little less.
That's fine.
Maybe it's a little less likely if they use it for mana early, right? They might decide, oh well, I can play this extra 2-drop if I just sack this thing, and then they don't draw into the bounce spell. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So you give them a little bit of an extra perk, but it maybe works out in your favor.
Yeah, there can definitely be times where that will happen. We haven't seen any. We haven't gotten to black yet, but if there's any reanimation stuff, this does let them put it in the graveyard to be reanimated, which is relevant.
It gets killed by my 1/3 cleric. Like, I like that card more and more. What are you thinking for a rating on this?
I think this card's like a 3/5. You're always going to play as many of these cards as you can get.
I agree. It's we're gonna have to see how good the removal is in the rest of the colors for me to evaluate it. But this is typically the premium of what white's gonna be getting, other than like the deal 5 to attacking creatures kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna try to speed us along a little bit. So we have a Monk of the Open Hand. This is the card that we get with our Planeswalker. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, it's a 1/1 for 1, and whenever you cast your second spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay. White doesn't typically draw a lot of cards.
No, I mean, I guess theoretically you play your Grandmaster of Flowers and then search up like 5 of them and play them all and play them, over and over again. But that's not ever going to happen with a Mythic and a bunch of uncommons, so...
Does the card put them into the battlefield or play? Or into your hand?
Puts it into your hand.
Okay, well. I mean, you just know as soon as you build that deck, though, you're going to draw 5 of them. Or no, you're going to draw 1 and a bunch of 4-drops, but never see the Planeswalker.
I'm not recommending this course of action. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah, I think this is just a 1.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have the type of Azorius deck that mills itself out on accident because half your cards draw, sure. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there is probably a spot for this in a hyper-aggressive deck that's going to go like 1-drop into 1-drop, 2-drop or something, but it's not.
2-drop equipments or something.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to come up very often.
All right, so we have Moon Blessed Cleric. It's a 3/2 for 3. Base stats is fine for filler if you need it. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. So it doesn't go in your hand. It's not card advantage, but it does give you your containment card. It gives you your class cards, which are often sort of signpost synergy things, like the Paladin class card. Was it Paladin, right, that we saw earlier?
We'll see Cleric. Paladin coming up. We've seen Cleric.
Yeah. Cleric, yeah. So Cleric really enables your deck and does something really cool, kind of turns every life gain trigger into like an Ajani Pridemate trigger. So something like that would make this worth playing, but on its own, because you're not actually gaining the card into your hand, it's only like so-so.
Yeah, I think you're going to probably play this card if you have a couple of reasonable targets, just because it's a 3-mana 3/2, which is filler stats anyway.
This card gets better the more good things you have, basically. Real quick, a lot of people in this channel and other channels have made note of Human Elf a bunch. They're like, what the heck is that? Isn't that just a half elf? Why are they doing all this stuff? I think that has a lot to do with like playing outside of this set for lords. This can actually, if you do a half elf, then technically that card would not get a trigger from like Elf Lord if you were to play like a, Selesnya Elves or something weird. So I think that just is for ease of the game more so than, correct naming, right? This way we can put it in a human deck, we can put it in an elf deck and be pretty happy.
Yeah, and they've done triple creature types before. And I think they'd prefer to just keep doing that rather than add new creature types to the game.
Well, here's the thing about the creature type is it's usually like orc, wizard, two things that do exist at the same time, but how can you be a human and an elf? That would be a half elf, right? So that's why people are just kind of have their noses turned up about it, I think.
Yeah.
Because you can't be both. If you are both, you're something else kind of thing.
Yep.
2/5? You're going to have some sort of enchantment, even if it's just the containment.
I agree.
All right. We have a rare. It's a 3/3 for 3 with vigilance. I'm already on board. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, venture into the dungeon. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon. Holy smokes, I want this card.
Yeah, this card's great. There's nothing about it not to like. It's even a cheap casting cost dragon, which is rare.
A what? What did you just call this?
It's a cheap casting cost dragon.
Oh, I thought you called it a sheep casting cost. I was like, what the heck is that?
You've been playing way too much Settlers of Catan.
Don't act like you know me. All right, so I have this at a 4.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to let you take the next one.
Okay, the next card is... Can you change it?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Oswald Fiddlebender. It's a 2-mana, 2/2 legendary creature gnome artificer. It has magical tinkering, pay white, tap, sack an artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed artifacts. Mana value, put it onto the board, then shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. So it's a 2-mana, 2/2 with the birthing pod type effect for artifacts.
So we're going to have to see what kind of artifacts there are to see if it's worth it. If they have ETB effects, that'll make this go better, right? Like there was an artifact like when you play it, you draw a card or something. And if you can then cycle that into like something with a little bit more oomph, then that's fine. It's a bear at its worst. So you're probably playing this at, a 2 just for a curve filler. But it's going to depend on the rest of the set. This one's a bit hard to evaluate. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect this type of thing to be good. So my instinct is a 2.
Yeah, the only way I could see this being particularly good is if there's a number of reasonable 1 casting cost artifacts and you're playing a treasure token deck.
Okay.
But I haven't seen any 1 casting cost artifacts yet, so...
This is it seems like a constructed card to me.
Agreed. Yep.
All right, moving on. Paladin Glass, guys. Spells your opponent cast during your turn cost 1 more. That's annoying and awesome for us. At level 2, creatures you control get +1/+1. That does not say till end of turn. So this is just an anthem. For 4 mana, it's an anthem. Awesome, I'm in. Whenever you attack until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and gains double strike. Huh. I like every single one of these. To be fair, it's a rare. The other one wasn't, but this seems great.
Yeah, this card's great. Remember, there's nothing that says you can't play this and level it up on the same turn. So even if you just looked at this as a 4-mana anthem, that's still very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of times anthems are 3, but in limited, a 4-mana anthem is very good.
I will say this is a very creature-specific one, whereas like some of the other ones, if they just draw you cards or scry, like you can run that in a wide range of decks. This isn't going to be good in your like mostly draw spell 9 creature Azorius deck, right?
Yeah, you want want a decent
15, 12 plus
deck. Yeah, but that's going to be the majority of your white decks anyway.
What do you think in score wise?
I think this card's it's at least a 4. It might be even better.
I think it's got a bit of a range. I think it's a 3/5 to up to like a 4/5, depending on your creature count. If your creatures are evasive, that's definitely helpful. If you have anything that generates tokens, it's going to go way up. But like, let's say the average deck, I think it's probably a 4.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
All right, moving right along, we have Paladin Shield. It's a flash 2-mana enchantment, artifact equipment. Why am I saying that? When it enters the battlefield, attach it to a creature, and equipped creature gets +0/+2. equip 3, but you get to the first equip for free. So that's definitely a nice little bonus. It's kind of a neat little combat trick.
Yeah, it's more of a combat trick than it is an equipment. Obviously it sticks around, but the value in this card is the instant speed, doing it once, and trying to turn a trade into a case where you eat their creature.
Or their burn spell or something.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to see what the red is, but if there's a lot of like 3 damage type spells, you want to just sit on this. I mean, It's nothing to write home about, but I'm happy to play this, and I'm far more happy to play it in like a sideboard situation. It would also be good against a really aggressive deck too. So you could stick your one creature that you have in your slower deck, and then be able to block a few times.
Yeah.
2? I'm still not thrilled.
Yeah. 2 is fine. I'm much more excited about Paladin class than Paladin Shield.
Oh, yeah. All right, we have a 3/3 for 5 mana. It flies, and whenever it attacks, venture into the dungeon. Whew, at common speed, or common rarity. My words are so jumbled up, guys. I'm tired. I'm sorry.
Yeah. 5 mana 3/3 flyer on its own is a little bit overpriced, but I'm still playing it, and then the abilities are really nice. I'm happy with this card.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ability is it triggering multiple times and having, a reasonably decent effect. I am very happy with this card, especially at a common.
Yeah, it's like a 3.
Yeah, I like it at a 3. Even if it's the only adventure card you have, like, it'll get there.
Agreed.
All right, another equipment, guys. 3 mana, equip creature gets +3/+3 and has ward 1. Equip 3, this ability costs 1 less to activate for each equipment you control. Huh.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So it only costs 1 more than the first mace. With the same equip cost, it gets +1/+1 in ward compared to the mace. This is way better.
Oh, this is way better than the mace, no question. I get a little... It's weird. This is a card that is good with more equipment, but equipment to some degree have, diminishing returns.
Yeah.
But only after a certain point, and if they're all good, especially, you get some of them that can turn into creatures or things like that, or double as combat tricks, I'm pretty happy with it. This is definitely one of the better ones I want to play.
Yeah. +3/+3 is a lot of stats, guys. It really is. It turns every single one of your creatures into a good threat that needs answering. And eventually, if your opponents are having to like burn your 1/1s, your 1 and 2 drops or whatever, then not a bad time. So, I mean, you still want a lot of creatures. You want some, so it goes in a very specific deck, but I'm still pretty happy. What do you think, score-wise?
I probably have it like at a 2, between a 2.5 and a 3, maybe a 3.
Yeah, I have it up at a 3, just because of how we rated the previous ones, and it's looking more and more like this is a moderately easy archetype to get into. It doesn't seem like it's just a one of rare deck. It's a whole theme, so I'm getting happier with it, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say I would not consider that last ability relevant at all in deciding if you should play other equipment. You don't play a subpar card just because of this ability.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, the next one, Portable Hole, guys. 1 mana, whenever it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls with 2 mana, with mana value 2 or less, until this leaves the battlefield. So, glass casket type effect for small things. I mean, most mana value 2 or less aren't that big of a threat, so they just get stonewalled by your 3-drop, so you have to decide whether you want this or a 3-drop. I feel like this is more sideboardy.
Yeah, I don't love this card. I mean, you think Glass Casket, 2 mana, removes 3, okay, subtract a mana from each. It's kind of the same thing, right? Well, 3 mana cards are way more threatening than 2 mana cards.
Definitely. You start to get really good abilities on 3 mana cards, too.
Yeah. there's nothing that we've seen in the set that I'm that scared of at 2 mana. Granted, we've only looked at part of it, but
2?
yeah, I will say, someone just pointed this out.
It does say permanent, so you're getting equipments.
It does hit tokens, obviously, and it does hit class cards, because they're, for most of them, if not all of them, are cheap to start with.
That still kind of makes it a sideboard card.
Yeah, it's a something to keep in mind.
So do we have it like a 2 or a 1/5?
I think I have it at 1/5.
All right, Potion of Healing. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, but like you said, good sideboard card.
Yeah, I don't mean to ut you off. It's just the video's already an hour long, so we're gonna.
Yep, we gotta go.
Potion of Healing. Plus, we have like 4 more colors. Jiminy Christmas. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for 2 mana, so it replaces itself. You can pay 1, sacrifice it, and you gain 3 life. So I only want this if I have like life gain synergies. If I'm likely to get something else for it, I'm fine, because for 2 mana it replaces itself, so that's just a cycle. But if you're light on playables, that's fine, or you can use it for the idea that like it replaces itself, so it's only a bonus to my synergies. So I mean, I'm happy with it, but I'm not playing it unless I have that deck.
Yeah, I want this 5 life gain, just like you said. I don't otherwise.
So I feel like it's a 2. It's even in the life gain deck, it's still not super exciting unless you have like the mythic triggers.
Yeah, I think it's a 2. That 2, and a lot of times you're just going to cut it.
All right, Priest of the Ancient Lore. It's a 3 mana 2/1. Bit weird on the stats. Better do something really good. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Okay. Well, so it's going to trigger your life gain abilities. Your cleric class card will then trigger, and it replaces itself, so it's just a nice bonus. I like this card.
Yeah, I think this card is fine. I don't know if we've seen this ability on this stats. Like, we've seen it a lot of times with like 2 mana 1/1. But yeah, the card's fine. It's not something you see a lot in white either.
You know what? I'm actually kind of surprised. I didn't really think about it. I was like, dwarf cleric, like it pretty relevant in D&D creature types as well. I'm actually really surprised they didn't bring back party.
Yeah,
I feel like that would have been the perfect mechanic for this set.
It does seem to fit really well.
Yeah, theme-wise, that'd be really cool. You get like, your dwarf cleric and your elf wizard, and you get like some sort of like cool thing. But yeah, that would have been a neat take on it, to bring back something that was already kind of established. I like this card well enough, but it gets better with life gain triggers, but a creature that replaces itself I'm happy with. I think it's like a 2/5.
Yep.
All right.
Seems good to me.
Rally. 3 mana, instant speed. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike till end of turn. Up to 2 other creatures get some booty. +0 minus, or +0 +2 and lifelink. 3 mana, a tad bit expensive. And it's not like a big anthem that's going to swing in and get the win, because they're not getting all attack. So it's not like a trumpet blast for white or anything. But it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the fact that, a lot of times your combat tricks, the biggest downside is, right, you're risking getting 2 for 1. And you still are here, but you also at least have the upside of getting a 2 for 1 with it. Yeah. Which a lot of times it's, you're just trying to get a 1 for 1 with a trick. So I like the fact that there is some upside here, but it is pricey.
Yeah, I'm not super excited with this card. I mean, you have to have a fair amount of creatures. I feel like it's going to get cut most of the time.
Yeah, this is a card I'm definitely going to lose to a lot more than I'm going to cast.
That's true, yeah. Especially in like big stalled board states, you're going to end up getting like a 3 for 1 possibly. Will not be super out of the question if you like, first strike your smallest guy and then like make some bigger butts on your trade, like presumable trades. Then yeah, this is going to be a bit weird. And the nice thing is it's instant speed, so you can do it on the blocks as well and set things up perfectly for yourself.
Yep.
So that's nice. So what are you thinking?
I think this is like probably a 1/5.
I like a 1/5 as well. I think it's going to perform better, but in that it's going to get us a lot. Like we're going to be very unhappy to lose to this card, but on its own, I don't think it's very good. Ranger's Hawk. It's a 1/1 flyer for 1 with 3 mana. You can tap another untapped creature, and then you can venture. So a bit slow and dirtily in that you have to have 2 creatures, you have to tap it down, you have to put a mana sink. So you're not going to get to venture very frequently, but you will get to venture. So it's kind of a nice late game mana sink if you're on a board stall.
Yeah, 1/1 flyer that actually has some value later in the game is decent, but it does cost you 2 creatures on like a stalled board or something in terms of blockers.
I'm liking this card a little bit more than the first time I saw it, seeing how much like moderately cheap and artifact equipments there are.
Yeah, that does make it better. I'm still probably not playing this card very often, but that's a little bit on the type of decks I like to play too.
Awesome. So 2/5?
I think I probably have it as a 2, but it definitely has some upside in the right decks.
Awesome. Steadfast Paladin, 2/2 for 2 with lifelink. Always love these cards.
Yeah, nice and simple. We see something like this pretty often in most sets. Life gain synergies obviously make it better, but I think this is pretty much just the 2.
I agree. Teleportation Circle. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 artifact or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Now, this one does say exile, so this is a flicker effect. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you get 4 mana to retrigger, basically trying to retrigger abilities or get stuff out from under.
So you're going to, remove Charmed Sleep. You're going to be flickering your Priest of the Ancient Lore to get more card draws. So we're really looking for ETB effects. This isn't really something most decks are going to want, but some will. Class cards don't really work like sagas, so flickering the saga, type deal isn't a thing in this set. But I think the average deck isn't going to want this, but it's going to be a really cute trick in some decks.
Yeah. Just on one note is you can't flicker like your Minimus Containment because it does not target enchantments.
Yes,
like
artifacts and creatures only.
Yeah, which doesn't come up often, but if you wanted to like flicker it to move it onto a better target or something, you can't do that.
Correct. So this feels split ratey to me, like 1/3.
Yeah, I am with you.
Awesome. Veteran Dungeoneer, guys. It is a 4 mana 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you get to venture into the dungeon. So 4 mana 3/4s we see a lot. It's actually a decent stat, I think. My 3/4s always kind of impress me in most sets. It like stonewalls the aggressive decks in enough time. And, it's starting to be the body size that can actually do some damage and make you more of an aggressor as well. I've definitely died to a lot of 3/4s. So I'm fine with this. I like to venture. It's only a one-time effect, but we can flicker it with our teleportation circle.
Yeah. Card's fine. It's just filler to me. 4-drop spot is usually pretty crowded, so it can be tough to find room for this, but you'll play it and not be unhappy with it.
It depends on the set. I mean, I have to take a look at the rest of it, but some sets I find that I almost never have 4-drops, and then some sets are all 4-drops.
Yeah, that can certainly be the case in some.
I definitely find like my 3 slot as well sometimes to be a little bit funky. What do you like this card at?
I just have it as a 2.
Okay, yeah, I'm on a 2 as well. Not super exciting about with it, but it goes up if you have maybe the up to a 2/5 if you really want to be venturing.
Yeah.
Because it is a decent stat body. White Dragon, guys, 6 mana. It is flying for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls. Tap target creature. Sorry, missed a word. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So I feel like this should be the blue dragon. I think like there was some sort of printing error here or something. But it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it does. It does feel very blue. It's your Frost Trickster, Frost Lynx type card, and you don't usually see that effect too much on something this expensive. But late in the game, this is pretty good against especially because it flies. If you're in a flyers deck, can stop their one reach creature or their one flyer for a couple turns.
You get a lot of people who are scared and limited to play 6-drops, but in limited, guys, even in drafts where the format is a bit faster than it is in sealed, one 6-drop at the top of your curve isn't going to do anything, and oftentimes they're just going to win you the game. And I think this dragon is a good example of that. That if you without bigger, better mythic rares, this is a good win condition.
See, I am being corrected that this is a white ability in D&D. That white dragons are ice.
Yes, white dragons are
that
ice in D&D, so that it is very flavorful in that way, definitely. What are blue dragons in D&D? I don't even...
Apparently lightning, it says.
Okay.
Which will be interesting, because that means you get a bunch of things doing odd abilities, because lightning's obviously red in Magic.
It's been like 10 years since I fought a dragon in D&D. Maybe longer. So what do you think score-wise on this?
This card's a 3/5.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to see how powerful the rest of the cards are, but for an uncommon, this seems really strong to me. So I was like almost even leaning up to a possible 4, just because the rest of the set doesn't seem super heavy hitting so far for white. We're almost at the end. So it's one of the stronger cards, at uncommon. But yeah, I think you're right. It's probably just a 3/5. Also, part of the reason I lean up is because it does something that leaves some sort of lasting effect. It's not just like a 4/4 that then instantly gets killed kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, you hear something on watch. I love these cards. They're super flavorful. Even if they suck, I'm probably going to give them too high a score because they're really awesome. So you can, reading them makes me feel like a DM again. It's great. You rouse the party. Creatures you control get +1/+1, or you can set off traps and you can deal 5 damage to an attacking creature. So they're so cool. Sorry, chat. I'm too exhausted for these. Yeah, I love these cards. I love that this is 2 things white typically does for a cheap mana cost rolled into 1 card, so it's flexible. If you're behind, if you're ahead, it's doing exactly what you want it to do. I love this card.
It's funny, this definitely shows the difference between someone that's played D&D and not. I hate the naming of these cards, but I actually like the card.
When you're DMing or playing, like, that's exactly how it brings me into the game. Like, you have a decision to make. What do you do when you hear something on watch? Do you like wake up your friends? It's so good. It's so flavorful.
I understand how it makes sense. It just feels really awkward to say, I cast, you hear something on watch. It just sounds so awkward.
Let's be honest. We all play Arena now. You're not talking to your computer screen. It's just so clever, so awesome. I like this card. I'm giving it a 3/5.
I like the card too. I'm not giving it a 3/5.
I mean,
but I do like the card.
For 2 mana, your whole squad gets +1/+1. I would definitely play that. And for 2 mana, 5 damage to an attacking creature, I'm definitely playing that at like a 3 or a 3/5. The flexibility, I get at least a half point. I like it.
Yeah, I'm not way off on you. I have it at 3. But
great, half point for flavor. I'm in. All right, you're ambushed on the road. What do? Do you make a retreat, return target creature you control to its owner's hand, or do you stand and fight? Target creature gets +1/+3 until end of turn. It's a little less exciting, and they're both common. Also, didn't change the thing again. Son of a biscuit. I need caffeine. That's what I need. So neither of the abilities are as strong. I feel like I'm far more likely to cut this and sideboard it. I like this as a sideboard card against like more aggressive decks or against decks with a lot of removal.
I lost you.
What? I'm dead? Uh-oh.
Oh, now I hear you again.
Okay, good. Well, I talked a bunch. Do you agree with me or not?
Sure, that's probably the safe thing to say.
You've met women before, haven't you? I don't like this card as much. It's not as cool. I give it a 2.
Yeah, I'm with you. But it's nice having the flexibility, but neither ability is that great.
Awesome, we agree. All right, guys, so hour and 15 minutes for our first one. That's a bit over what we wanted to do, so we're gonna go ahead and end this video really quick. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on the white cards, maybe what we did right, wrong, or correctly. What do you think of the sets? And I hope you guys will check out blue, which is going to be coming out in a couple hours from when you probably watched this, or it's already out. Thanks, guys. See you in the next video. Bye! I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.